So, you want your Warlock patron to be a magical demigod who commands whole nations with defiling magic. Stick around to see the full subclass breakdown. Hello everyone, and welcome to Arcana Indexed. Here, each week, we are taking a deep dive into one Unearthed Arcana subclass released for Dungeons & Dragons 5.24. We're discussing the vibe of each subclass, the strengths, weaknesses, viability, and usability in your games, and what changes you might consider if you wanted to use the Unearthed Arcana now instead of waiting for the full release. So, if you're a player or a DM who's looking for more free options to use or to allow in your games, but aren't sure which options, welcome. I'm glad you're here. Today, we'll be diving into the Sorcerer King Patron Warlock, released in the Apocalyptic Subclasses 2025 Unearthed Arcana playtest document. For those of you who don't know, all of these subclasses are available for download on the D&D Beyond website, and I have the link posted in the description of each of these videos. The Sorcerer King Patron is a reference to the Sorcerer Kings from the Dark Sun setting. For those that don't know, Dark Sun is a post-apocalyptic setting with heavy themes of forced internships, ecological disaster caused by unchecked power, and magic pulling the life-giving energy from the earth itself. Basically, it's a view of what can happen with unchecked power from the environmental, social, and governmental aspects of the world. It's a bleak view, but it is a very cool setting with a lot of potential. I'm hoping the surveys went well, and we will actually get a good sourcebook coming out in the next few years. But I do hope that it's done well. As a side note, I do miss the days of the D&D YouTube channel putting out videos talking about the results of these Unearthed Arcana playtest feedback surveys. Those are always super interesting and gave me more to look forward to when it came to future book releases. From the Dark Sun wiki page, the Sorcerer Kings are immensely powerful, semi-human tyrants of the many city-states found within the Tablelands. Each is a powerful defiler wizard, see my video from a couple months ago, approaching dragonhood through terrible magic, masquerading as deities or divine proxies. Sorcerer Kings maintain their absolute power by hoarding arcane secrets, commanding vast armies, and enforcing their will through brutal authoritarian rule. Their defiling magic draws energy from the land itself, leaving barren devastation in their wake. Though they are worshipped by their subjects, the Sorcerer Kings care little for mortals beyond their usefulness as tools, laborers, and sacrifices to sustain their unending ambition. Warlocks of a Sorcerer King might be powerful lieutenants, or someone seeking the favor of such a being. If you're not playing in the Dark Sun setting, you might be able to use this subclass for any tyrannical ruler with incredibly powerful magic. Vecna, prior to his ascension to lichdom and later godhood, would likely fit this subclass. Most settings will have an evil, magically powerful ruler or two that could serve as a patron of this kind. In theory, they might not even have to be an evil patron, but with the abilities granted by this subclass, it definitely seems to lead in that direction. Getting into the mechanics of this subclass, starting at level 3, we get Sorcerer King spells. Similar to the Sorcerers, Clerics, Paladins starting in 5.24, Warlocks also get their subclass spells always prepared. Sorcerer King Warlocks get a special ability with their always prepared spells in that they get Psionic Casting, which says they can cast any of their subclass specific spells without using verbal or material components, so long as the components don't have a cost. It's important to remember that you still have to do any somatic components as well as any and all components for spells that aren't on your subclass list. At 3rd level, they can get the following spells: Command, Compel Duel, Hold Person, Mind Spike, and Wrathful Smite. Command is one of my favorite spells to have on a Warlock because it upcasts so incredibly well, allowing you to target an additional creature with its effect, and it only has verbal components, meaning for this subclass, there are no visible or auditory signs that you are casting the spell. This evokes incredible imagery as the Warlock walks into a room and several people are magically compelled to just prostrate themselves, groveling with no indication as to why. Compel Duel is an incredibly situational spell, and I honestly don't think I would ever cast it as a Warlock. Outside of an armor dip somewhere, you aren't going to be tanky enough to make good use of this spell. Hold Person is again super thematic and is situationally strong. I will say in 2024 it's less effective than it was in 2014 due to the many changes of creature types away from humanoid. This spell will no longer work against goblins, kobolds, Githyanki, and others, but it does upcast reasonably well, which means it will stay relevant on a Warlock, so long as you are fighting humanoids. Mind Spike is another fairly situational one, but it will do a little damage. But frankly though, by level 5, your Eldritch Blast will have a higher damage output than Mind Spike. Wrathful Smite might get some use if you are playing a Pact of the Blade Warlock. It's another way to get the Frightened condition, which will be important later, but you will have better ways to do that. At level 5, they get access to Fear and Sending. Warlocks have so many good choices for 3rd level spells, but Fear is one of the best control spells in the game. And Sending is a highly underrated spell. It's always hard for me to justify taking it because there are so many 3rd level spells that I want, but it really does solve a lot of problems that arise in game. And it's actually incredible on a Warlock who can cast it and then immediately rest and get the spell slot back. I love both of these spells. At level 7, we get Compulsion and Staggering Smite. Compulsion is another underrated spell. It doesn't have a limit to the number of creatures that it can compel, and directing movement is a really useful way for dealing with minions that are likely not immune to the charm condition. As we go through this subclass, we're going to be running into a lot of fear and charm effects, so we'll save that criticism till the end. Staggering Smite will definitely be useful again if you are playing a Pact of the Blade Warlock, but otherwise it won't make a huge difference. This subclass spells really do seem to be leaning this into a Pact of the Blade up close and personal playstyle. At level 9, you get Dominate Person and Synaptic Static. Both are super thematic and really good spells. Dominate Person suffers from similar issues as Hold Person in that it requires you to target a person, or humanoid, but Synaptic Static is one of my favorite spells. I love that it got included in the player's handbook this time around. If you don't know, it's basically a psychic fireball that targets an intelligence saving throw and applies a 1d6 penalty to attack rolls, ability checks, and concentration checks until they succeed on the saving throw. And it doesn't require concentration. It's really good. All told, this is a really good spell list. Every level gives you at least one strong option in any situation, and you get a lot of niche spells. In a high intrigue campaign where you're dealing with a lot of humanoids, it gets even better, but it will be fine in any campaign. As far as class features, at level 3, we get Tyrant's Herald. This gives you two things. First, you get Intimidating Presence. This gives you expertise in the Intimidation skill, super thematic, and a solid ribbon feature that will come up in game. You also get Voice of Tyranny. This lets you cast Command as a bonus action without expending a spell slot. You can use this a number of times equal to your Charisma modifier, and the use is reset on a long rest. This is really interesting with the new spellcasting rules. If you didn't know, in 2014, you were essentially only able to cast one leveled spell per turn. It was actually a lot more complicated than that. The rule was if you cast a spell with your bonus action, you couldn't also cast a leveled spell with your action. This led to some strange interactions, like technically if you cast a cantrip with your bonus action as a sorcerer with Quicken Spell or Shillelagh or something like that, you couldn't cast a leveled spell with your action. It was dumb. Most GMs I know homebrewed that. In 2024, they simplified that all the way down to, on a turn, you can only expend one spell slot to cast a spell. So now, even if you are casting a leveled spell, but without a spell slot, you can still cast a spell with your action. So, since you can cast Command as a bonus action without a spell slot, you should be able to use your action to cast a spell, then follow that up with a command spell to really maximize your control over the battlefield. In fact, if you wanted to, you could cast the command spell as your action with a Warlock spell slot, which is 2nd level at this point, allowing you to target 2 creatures, then cast it again as a bonus action, allowing you to target 3 creatures per turn. At level 6, you get Decisive Edict. This allows you to create a 30-foot emanation every time you cast a spell using your packed magic slots. You can choose one of two effects to apply to each creature in the emanation. First, you can choose Martial. That says that chosen creature has advantage on attack rolls until the end of its next turn. The other option is Oppress, which says that the chosen creature has to make a Wisdom saving throw or be frightened until the end of your next turn. You can only use this feature once per short rest. This is a great feature that will allow you to cast a spell, which is what you really were wanting to do anyways. Then you also get a buff to your allies and debuff your enemies. The play pattern for most warlocks I've seen in game is to lead off on the first turn of combat with a powerful control spell, allowing you to also trigger this feature to benefit your allies, debuff your enemies, and cause whatever the spell effect was, all with just one action. You still even have your bonus action available to cast Command. At level 10, you get Vindictive Rebuke. This says, when an enemy hits you with an attack roll, you can use your reaction to force them to re-roll the attack, and they must use the new roll. If the reaction turns the hit into a miss, the triggering creature takes psychic damage equal to your warlock level. You can use this feature Charisma modifier times per long rest. This is a solid feature, but it definitely makes me want to take an armor dip. Because honestly, as a warlock at 10th level or beyond, without some kind of armor class bonus, you're probably going to be hit by the reroll too. If I was using this ability, I'd probably save it to avoid being critically hit, and if it ends up doing extra psychic damage, that's just icing on the cake. At level 14, we get our capstone feature, Absolute Tyranny. This says, whenever you cast Command, you can target one additional creature with the spell's range. Also, creatures that are frightened of you automatically fail their saving throw against your command. On this feature, you have multiple ways of causing creatures to be frightened of you. You have the Fear spell. You also have Decisive Edict that causes fear. For example, if you cast Fear, those in the cone would have to make a Wisdom saving throw against the Fear spell and against Decisive Edict. Then you can cast Command as a bonus action, causing two creatures to automatically fail their saving throw. That's 3 potential saving throws in one round, and if they fail any of them, they have to deal with the Command spell. Heck, with how devastating the Command spell can be, you might also burn through 3 legendary resistances in a single round. This is a great subclass. If you're in a campaign with a lot of fear and charm immunity, it will be hard. But for most campaigns, this will be an amazing addition to any party. The heavy on fear and charm thing might cause some interesting dynamics at the table. I honestly don't know how you would play this subclass as anything but an evil aligned character, but if you have some ideas, I would love to hear about them in the comments below. I love that everything in the subclass feels relevant and there are no dead levels. I would certainly allow it at my table just as it is. I do hope some of the features get a little more polished before final release, but as it is, it's an amazingly well done subclass. This has been my take on the Sorcerer King Warlock Patron. Let me know in the comments below what your thoughts are. If you enjoyed this content, I would love it if you were to like the video and consider subscribing to the channel. Thanks so much for stopping by, and until next time, bye. For those that don't know, Dark Sun is a Compulsion is another underrated spell. It doesn't have a limit to the number of creatures that it... At level 7, we get Compulsion... Start over. Hold up. Even if the reaction turns... Oh, wait. Oh, yeah, this is the one that's kind of shitty.